Hey, what's up, world? Henry here with the Talent Roadmap Podcast, a podcast designed for job seekers in tech. Today, I have someone that I've been admiring for the last year and a half, someone I've been following very closely, and actually taking tips from, specific on the resume standpoint. So, as for me, I've been a recruiter for about 10 years now, and I'm always looking for folks that have great advice, are super transparent with their advice, and most importantly, give them the right advice, in my opinion. Today, I have Sam Struan. Some of you may know him as the #1 resume writer on LinkedIn. So very honored to be here with you, Sam. I'm going to just pass it off to you because I know you've got an incredible story. So Sam, if you can give us a quick origin about your career, where you're from, anything you'd like to share, and I'll follow up with some questions around the resume piece and then some current events in your career at the moment. Everyone, welcome, Sam.
Thank you. #1 resume writer on LinkedIn. I don't know about that, but maybe one day. I'm going to keep working towards that.
Right
But it's
on.
good to be here, Henry. Appreciate it. And yeah, just a quick background. You and I have been recruiting pretty much almost the same time, roughly 10 years in this space, and still enjoying it, but took a bit of a pivot to help individuals with their resumes a couple of years ago. My background is I was born and raised in Scotland. I spent about 12 years in Canada. I'm back in Scotland now, and I currently grow an online business with resume writing, but also I coach and teach other people to kind of earn online using LinkedIn.
But so, grew up in Scotland, was in Vancouver, back in Scotland, and you help folks online with LinkedIn, resume writing specifically. And then you mentioned, I think recently in a post, that you're going to start coaching. Is that something that's launching pretty soon, or is there a specific timeline to that?
Yeah, so I've already been coaching one-on-one with a few individuals to help them grow their LinkedIn brand and offer resume review services, or in some cases, just a service that is based on their corporate skills. The main thing that I've been helping individuals though for a while though is predominantly job seekers with resumes. And I view the job search in kind of three main buckets. Number one is you need to land interviews, and to do that, you either need a resume or a referral. Generally, that's how it works, right? Applying online with a resume or getting a referral. The second step is actually preparing for that interview. So nailing that interview, passing that interview, and that would be interview prep. And then negotiating the best offer or just getting a competitive offer, getting the offer. So I see those kind of like three buckets of you need to land interviews, you need to pass interviews, and then everyone wants the most competitive offer they can get. So that comes down to salary negotiation. Obviously, there's like nuances in between, but in terms of those three buckets, I actually help people with the first step, which is the resume, and then the salary negotiation. And I do not do any interview prep.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I've seen a ton of like patterns in my career as well. Those are the biggest pain points, right? And there's actually specific different skill sets that go into each bucket, as you mentioned. I did interview prep for a bit, and that became, I think, a bit of the Wild West. It was more so trying to kind of understand individuals' personalities, right? And I think with you and I both being in the space, it can go one way or the other depending on who you're talking to, the time of day, how many interviews that hiring managers had that day, and if you're coming in with your best foot. Speaking of the resume piece, you have this really cool framework, which I think every recruiter kind of understands what it means to have go from X, Y, and Z, or, you know, uh, your objection. Maybe you can obviously share much better than I can, but you would distilled it down to when readers look at your posts on LinkedIn or your resume examples, it's pretty clear on what you should put in your summary, why it's important, and then the rest of the document being like supporting information. So can you talk about that specific objective portion? And then I want to touch on the salary negotiation piece.
Yeah, so my approach to the resume has really been formed from being on the receiving end of so many and then thinking about what would be really helpful to see when I look at someone's resume. So I recommend starting off the resume with a succinct overview of your background before the reader even needs to read the rest of the resume or decipher that information. So what that looks like is a 3-step kind of formula where I ask someone to include the years of experience that they have total or years of experience doing a particular function or a role, the types of roles and responsibilities that they've held, And then I always ask them to indicate the types of organizations quantified by headcount and revenue. So for me, I have a total of 15 years of work experience. The first 5 years was like customer service, retail, serving, right? It's not relevant to my target roles. So I've got
Mm-hmm.
15 years, but on my resume, I say I have 10 plus years in recruitment and leading talent teams for startups, global tech startups with 60 to 2,000 plus employees and up to 300 million in annual revenue. And years of experience, roles and responsibilities, headcount, and revenue. The reason, in my opinion, a statement like that works is because it's 100% factual, and it doesn't matter if it's a junior recruiter or a CEO looking at the resume. They will be able to kind of objectively understand 10 years experience in a recruitment function, leading teams, and headcount and revenue of 60 to 2,000 plus employees, 300 million in revenue. And that works better than me saying something like, I'm a results driven recruitment leader with a career long record of talent ops and strategic relationship development, and I can
Right,
manage
right.
complex projects. It's fluff.
Yeah, and I think a follow-up question there, as like a reader, a recruiter, or a hiring manager, or an interviewing panel member, I think with everything else going on in their day-to-day, whether they're writing code or doing marketing documentation, I have to jump into an interview very quickly. I'm going to speak for you here. You want to put the most valuable information first, right? So the interviewer can say, "Hey, cool. Here's who I'm speaking with. 10 plus years of experience. 30 plus headcount per year in the technical space." Then now that crafts or maybe curates the conversation to become more likely a better interviewing process. Is that something that's maybe a correct assumption there?
Yes, I would say there's a few reasons I lead with that. It's factual.
Hmm.
Everyone, okay, regardless of whether they work for a private organization, non-profit, or government, or a university, right? Every
Hmm.
organization has headcount and either revenue or some kind of funding or operating
Right, right.
budget. Top performers naturally speak in these terms. They naturally think about the business, the size, the structure, and the scope. So part of it is just like aligning with what top professionals like focus on, and like whether they say it or not, companies do care, right? These are
Yeah,
objective data points. It also positions someone as a clear communicator, right? If I'm
big
saying
time.
I'm results driven, proactive, and like really dynamic, right? There's lots of fluff. When I say Henry, I've got about 10 years of experience. I've been in recruitment functions in agencies as well as internal, and I've led talent teams. And typically, I've worked in 60 to 2,000 plus employees, that range, plus 300 million in revenue. Whether I'm a direct fit for your organization or not, that's going to put me, in the bucket of like clear communicator, understands their value. And when I received 100 resumes, only like two or three people can succinctly summarize their experience objectively. They stand out naturally.
That was going to be my next question. Like, how many do you see, writing in the framework you've suggested, and how many do you see as like results driven, talent acquisition leader, dynamic space? I think I know the answer to that, but if you want to share it to the audience, like, it's more than you think, right? Like, what do you think? 3 out of 100, 10 out of 100?
Gosh, I'm gonna say about 10 to 20% of people really speak well in their resume from the ones that I've seen, right? And I probably out of every 10 requests that I get on LinkedIn to say, hey, can you check out my resume? Because I always look at someone's resume before I even suggest any services. I probably say no to about 20% of people, and I say, look, it's not your resume. Your resume is decent. What you're facing is challenges in the market. But yeah, about 80% of them, I'm like, you know why I'm kind of busy, and I'm very grateful for that,
I was
right?
going
And
to
I'm
say, yeah.
grateful for the work, but it's also why I give out a lot as well on LinkedIn. I'm like, there's so many people that are just falling into that vague subjective camp of the buzzwords. So yeah.
Got it. Got it. Gosh, so many questions I have. I wanted to ask this question before I do, because I have it hanging in my brain here. You are the only person I've seen on LinkedIn that has actually opened up Lever ATS or any given ATS and has shown exactly what it looks like for the workflow of a resume to go in and how it's received on a recruiter's end. And I think you might have just solved one of the most ambiguous topics on Reddit, in LinkedIn, in any chat room. Like, hey, is there an ATS bot behind the scenes? And you've proven that there isn't any. I think that was super helpful for me to see, because I've had so many conversations in trying to translate why that isn't a thing and why humans actually have to read these resumes. So what prompted you to do that? And I think the idea around just showcasing an ATS was just like was genius. Okay, what prompted you to do that? And then what has been the reception after the fact? Have you grown your network? Have you met some great people? I'll stop there because maybe I'm leading too much, but yeah, let's talk about that.
No, great question. First, Lever ATS for me is still hands down one of the best applicant tracking systems I've used. Like, shout out to Lever. They don't pay me at all. Like, there's no partnership or I don't know what you call those things. There's no sponsorship or affiliate whatsoever. Lever, one of their reps, I started posting about Lever, and one of their reps reached out and just kind of had some questions, and very kind of they gave me a demo account, so that's when I created those videos.
Nice.
And the reason I did it was obviously to kind of showcase the truth about applicant tracking systems. And because content didn't exist, like there's still to this day, like I don't know another recruiter who has posted a kind of behind the scenes look at an applicant tracking system and what actually happens when a candidate hits apply, what actually happens when a candidate hits upload resume. So obviously I did it for clarity and also as a resource for me when I get all these, I get these messages like I want to pass the ATS, I want to beat the ATS, I'm getting screened out by AI bots, ATS compliance, and I got auto rejected by the ATS because of my keywords. Like I still get those on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. So it was partly a resource for me to be like, this is how they work. Please stop for worrying about an ATS auto rejecting you because you didn't have dynamic leader in your resume. So transparency, partly as a resource for me, so I didn't have to respond with the same message, or kind of like it's just easier for me to demonstrate. And I thought it was going to be a unique bit of content. The reception from recruiters has generally been, oh, thanks for finally showing, and speaking the truth. Some candidates accept that at face value, and others are like, no, I will still believe in an AI bot or ATS bot. And I'm like, fair, like I'm not going to argue with you. If you want to believe that, if that's easier to accept than face the hard truth was that you simply weren't the best qualified individual at that time, then that's someone else's path that they want to go down.
Right. Whole different conversation. Yeah, that could be days worth of information. So yeah, thanks again for sharing that, man. I think that again, echoing the rest of the recruiter, that was super helpful for all of us. Salary negotiation. And you mentioned this earlier on. I wanted to make sure we touch on this as well. I think it's incredibly important because throughout my career, there have been instances where, a base compensation or even a sign-on has shifted from zero to maybe a delta of like 20K, 25K, and up to 50K, depending on the level of the role. So I think it's a really interesting topic, right? People kind of shy away from discussing compensation, and it's kind of like taboo. But you've put it at the forefront to where, there's a formula now that you have. If you want to share this in particular, and make it, I guess, a bit of an easier topic for folks to digest and uncover, because it doesn't make a lot of sense, right? If you can capture X amount of percent more, it's going to change your lifestyle year to year. If you have a family, even better. If you have specific hobbies or things you'd like to accomplish over the next 3 or 4 years in your career, that extra percentage could make a huge difference. So without me going off on another tangent, what made you want to discuss that? Were there any pain points? And then maybe you can share some of the tips here.
Yeah, there's tons that I want to say about salary negotiation. So hopefully we can capture a fair amount in this discussion. And I don't have anything in order right now, but there's a few things. When I learned to negotiate salary professionally and what I deem kind of appropriately, there was a particular move that I made which was life-changing for me. I think it was at least $40,000 extra in one move. And at that time, that was significant for me. It was life-changing for me in terms of being able to plan holidays. Actually, one of the first things I invested in when I got a significant bump in salary was counseling. I was like, oh, I can actually afford to invest in this. So that's, for me, it was a life-changing experience. And that's when I really wanted to obviously learn more about it and kind of, come up with more content, share some of that content. Because I was like, well, if I can have an experience like this, I want others to. And whatever someone wants to buy, whether it's a car or whatnot, or counseling, like it doesn't matter what someone wants. But I think the act of learning how to do it is so important learning how to negotiate salary early in your career as possible is also important. I want people to have a good, positive experience with salary negotiation, whether they get what they want or not. I think just like the act of trying and having a good experience is so important for someone's like the rest of their career, because people who have had a negative experience obviously are less likely to do it again, and that can really impact overall lifetime earnings. So that's why I'm so passionate about salary negotiation. Now, a few things that I would say about salary negotiation in 2025 is that I would say it would be, my observation is generally there is less appetite for it from employers. Doesn't mean you can't. It's just that the negotiations that, the maybe significant bumps that you could get a few years ago aren't happening as often today. But salary negotiation is still something that is expected from many. And when approached professionally, sensitively, it can still be really successful for a lot of people in 2025. But I do think it does come from, or rather, a successful salary negotiation does require prep, tact, approaching it sensitively. There's a few frame points, and tell me to be quiet if you need to jump in. There's a couple of things. A lot of people view salary negotiation as really combative, right? Negotiation is quite an aggressive word. We think hostage negotiation, we think salary negotiation, we think combative nature. Whereas, I don't view it that way. I view it as just like communicating needs objectively, right? The business needs this, I can offer this, and here's what I'm looking at. So I just see it as another form of communication. But I think a lot of people shy away from salary negotiation because the word, it has connotations of aggressiveness. So I think viewing it differently is one thing. The other is having an approach, right? Having a structure. I post a 5-step structure very regularly because it's one that worked for me, and I think it's kind of fair on both sides. But salary negotiation isn't about tricking the other person. It's not about manipulation. It's just about presenting kind of facts and an ask in a professional manner. And what I would say is some of the tips that I have, a lot of people would be like, oh, that's just like nuance. It's not a big deal. But it makes a big difference for the person asking. So if I can give things that just make people a fraction more confident in making the ask, makes it more objective, if it's going to be more well received by the employer, then I'm going to share some of that content. So hopefully we can share some of that with viewers.
Dude, yeah. I love your approach and like your whole mental model behind it. It really isn't hostility, right? I think and for folks watching, in the 10 years that I've recruited, there's always been a buffer. Like if someone is open to asking or having the conversation for whatever reason, right? I think it's healthy. We always keep a 10% buffer of scaling up in compensation. And that saved us a ton of time having to email the hiring team and our CFO for like a budget increase, because they have numbers as well they need to kind of abide by, but they also have a buffer. So it's not necessarily a static number the majority of the time. So I just wanted to kind of touch on that because it's helpful for us recruiters as well if you are open to sharing, or negotiating, if you want to call it that. I mean, when you mentioned hostility, I kind of want to think not to use that term anymore, but or the case may be, the conversation around compensation needs to be a bit more fluid, as you mentioned. So yeah, I love that. I think when you mention your 5-step framework as being the best for both sides, it really is trying to build this partnership or bridge between the candidate, the hiring manager, and the company, right? Because if you're going to hire someone, and conversely, if you're going to be working with this company, you want it to be a very healthy relationship, however long you plan on staying there, because that will have a domino effect in the rest of your career, whether it's referrals or just leaning back on someone in your past company for advice or mentorship. And I've done this multiple times with folks since leaving Crunchyroll in 2021. So it's been about 4 years, but I still have conversations with folks that have helped me in the past and vice versa. Not necessarily about compensation, but I just wanted to share that as far as like how that all works from my perspective. So very cool, man. So resumes, other negotiation, coaching. What's kind of next for you? It feels like you're building this ecosystem of like job seeker, folks in tech having to being able to kind of up level their skills. So what's next on the roadmap for Sam?
Yeah, next on the roadmap is, well, I'm still going to continue with resume writing, resume reviews, and posting on salary negotiation tips just because I really still love that realm. The next kind of evolution of what I'm trying to help individuals with is learning to earn using the skills that they've gained, usually from the corporate world. So basically helping people earn online. And the reason I'm moving into it is because I have gotten to a point where I never thought was possible. And that is earning online and running a sustainable business. Been doing it for over 2 years now, and there was a time in my life where I thought I will never be one of those individuals that can earn online and earn 10K a month. And I don't share that to brag. I share it because I'm like, oh my god, it is possible. Like, I'm
Right.
one of these people that I used to be like roll my eyes at, and think, oh well, they're lucky, they had it, they've had a hand up. And it's like, actually no, I have come from pretty much nothing. I
Yeah.
built it myself. So I want to help other individuals, and there's a few reasons for it. And one of them is when I started being able to kind of earn a little bit online. I wasn't able to earn full time, but I was earning a little bit, and that skill just helped me in so many ways in the corporate world. It helped me turn down lowball offers. It gave me runway to wait for the right offer. And it gave me a lot of
Mm,
confidence to walk away from situations that I knew weren't going to be furthering my career, because I knew I had a bit of a net. It wasn't a net that was going to
mm-hmm,
be super strong or last forever, but I knew I could earn income online. And I
mm,
want to be able to help other people. I would also say in 2025, in this market, relying on one source of income, especially if it's a full-time
yeah.
job from an employer, like, to me, that's just one of the riskiest things that you could do right now, is rely on an employer for 100% of your income. To me, that's one of the riskiest things. The idea of a full-time permanent job for me is a complete farce. Everyone's really a contractor at will, at least in most markets.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah, being able to teach others to fee off their own back, I
Mm,
think is just a skill worth, for me, it's worth my time, and I think it's worth others to invest in that skill. So that's like the next step.
dude, very cool, man. And I think there's a sense of pride and joy too, right? Like almost building your own thing, having someone see the value in it, trading you, currency for something that you've designed. And I think that's you're spot on as far as the multiple streams of income. Hence why I'm doing a podcast and other things as well. For me, it's given me mental clarity and has reduced my stress levels of going from job to job to job, climbing the ranks. At one point, I wanted to be a head of talent at a fast growing startup and like just go through the suffering and like the trials, and then at the end of it become this head of talent. And now I'm like, I just want to surf and make enough money a month to take care of my family and take some breaks. And I think as I've gotten a bit older in life, the things that I value the most are just my time and my experiences and traveling the world now. So I think with you mentioning that, I think some folks here listening are like, wow, I wish I could make 10K a month, because it would shift my life into exactly what I want it to be. And, enter whatever variable you want it to kind of solve for. So that's super, super cool of you, man. I can't wait to see, the things launch publicly, and I'll definitely be a subscriber or a member of whatever community you're building. I want to ask two things, Sam, and I know we're coming up on time. One is something a bit more personal and hobbies and passions of yours. And then secondly, we can close out with maybe one single tip that you can give a job seeker in 2025 to help navigate kind of the storm here. So first one, hobbies and passions, and then second, one tip for the job seekers that are watching.
Hobbies and passions. We actually share surfing. I tried surfing for the
Oh,
first time.
okay, cool.
I tried
Oh,
surfing for the first time a few months ago and loved it.
yeah,
Picked
yeah.
myself up a surfboard. I'm signing up for lessons at a place local near Edinburgh. We have
Sick.
like the largest surf resort. It's like artificial waves. It's like the largest surf resort in Europe.
Okay.
So that's one of the hobbies. And I think just any kind of like, anyone watching, right? Like, if you don't have a hobby that is like physical activity, go out and find
Mm-hmm.
one, right? Try
Yeah.
anything and everything as many times, but like, I genuinely, everyone should have some kind of hobby that is physical activity. If you don't like the gym, go try a sport. If you don't like a sport, go
Mm-hmm.
try dancing. Right? Whatever that thing is, find something, and that would be kind of like my hobby. My advice for job seekers in 2025 in this market. Okay, my one piece of advice, I think, would be start showcasing and building in public and do it online.
Mm.
We're in a market right now where tens, if not hundreds of people have a good resume and are applying for the same jobs. And I think the next step for the job market in terms of showcasing or being in the top 10%, but also from a verification perspective, that building and showcasing work in public is going to be the next step. I think that's where the market's going. So an example of what I mean is you've seen some of my videos where I'm on Loom and I go through people's resumes, or I'll go through Lever applicant tracking system and I'll say, like, this is how I'd improve this, or here's a demo. Okay. That's me demonstrating in public on video my skill sets, my knowledge. And there's a degree of verification there where it's not AI, it's not me hiding behind an application and clicking upload, right? Like, that's a real problem that recruiters are facing, is like fake candidates. And one of the ways that you can combat that is through genuine, real content. So any job seekers, right? I hate giving job seekers like yet another thing, but the reality is, like, the top 10% in the market are getting jobs right now. So if you want a steady-ish, stable-ish, decent paying job, you have to be in the top 10%. And quite frankly, the top 10% are the ones that are building, trading in public. So get Loom, it's free. And if you're in customer service, write a customer service template, walk someone through it, and just like, this is why it worked. Here's how I would respond to this complaint. Go on Reddit, find out top customer complaints, demonstrate and write and say, like, this is what I would draft up, and write it live. People can see, oh, you're human. Doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to be real. And that is what's going to differentiate someone in this market.
Gosh, man, that could be a whole other podcast. Thank you for sharing that, because I do agree that's the future. And it's actually, we're on the doorstep of that, like, in this year. Maybe for podcast number 2 with you, Sam, if you're open to it. But just to wrap up, y'all, thanks for joining us. Sam's shared some incredible advice here. You can find him on LinkedIn, Sam Struan. He's got 125,000 followers, so it's not going to be hard to find him. From there, I think you'll see a lot of his content is a ton of value add, and it's super transparent. So give him a follow. Give us a follow here on Talent Roadmap. We shall see you all next time, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Henry.